Sumerian medical texts use a specific term, namzu, meaning knowledge, combined with bala, meaning cycle or rotation, in contexts that suggest knowledge removal is a periodic process, not a permanent state. A procedure inscribed on clay tablets over 4,000 years ago was embedded in purification rituals overseen by one god, Enki, the Lord of Wisdom. He did not just grant humanity knowledge, he determined when it was taken back. Over 500,000 tablets survive from this civilization. Fewer than 10% have ever been translated, and what has already been decoded raises a question few scholars are prepared to answer. Southern Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates, gave rise to the world's first true cities. Names like Ur, Lagash, Kish, and Girsu dotted a landscape shaped by rivers and canals, their ziggurats rising above the floodplain. Over a span of more than 2.5 millennia, roughly 4,500 to 1900 BCE, these urban centers generated a written legacy on a scale that still staggers the imagination. Archaeological digs at Eridu, Lagash, Ur, Nippur, and Kish have unearthed a mountain of clay tablets, each one pressed with cuneiform signs. The Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative now catalogs more than 345,000 of these texts, but the true total is believed to top 500,000. Tablets fill museum shelves from Istanbul to Philadelphia, yet of all these ancient records, fewer than 10% have been translated or published. The rest, more than 450,000, remain unread, their contents sealed in dried mud, their secrets waiting for the rare scholar who can decipher them. The tablets capture every detail of Sumerian civilization, lists of barley rations, royal decrees, contracts, hymns, incantations, and medical instructions. Some are no larger than a matchbox, others the size of a brick. Many are broken, their edges worn by centuries underground. The scale of the archive dwarfs that of any other ancient culture. Even today, new fragments are cataloged every month, some recovered from storerooms where they sat unrecognized for decades. Most of what is known about Sumer comes from a narrow slice of this enormous corpus. The overwhelming majority remains untranslated, its meaning locked away by time, language, and the sheer shortage of experts. The untranslated tablets are not just administrative records. They include myths, rituals, and technical treatises that could reshape what is known about the origins of writing, religion, and science. Every unread tablet is a missing voice, a potential disruption to the story so far. The vastness of this unread archive raises a haunting possibility that the patterns of remembering and forgetting, of knowledge granted and withdrawn, might be encoded in texts still hidden from view. It is within this sea of silent clay that the search for Sumer's deepest mysteries continues. Enki stands at the heart of Sumerian thought as both the wellspring of wisdom and its most vigilant guardian. Known as the Lord of Wisdom and Lord of the Earth, Enki is invoked in hymns, king lists, and ritual texts not only as a creator and benefactor, but as the one who decides when knowledge flows and when it is sealed away. The paradox runs deep. In the Eridu Genesis, Enki alone remembers humanity when the divine council chooses to erase them. In other myths, he dispenses the me, divine decrees that define civilization, only to later pursue their return when he fears they have gone astray. The me are not abstract ideals. They are cataloged, counted, and sometimes even listed on clay tablets. Among these decrees sits the me-gesh, the writing tablet. This is not mere metaphor. The power to write, to record, and to remember is treated as a gift that can be given or reclaimed, never truly owned by mortals. In the tale of Inanna and Enki, the goddess cunningly acquires a trove of me from Enki's house, including those that govern wisdom, the scribal arts, and the keeping of secrets. Enki's response is telling. He dispatches his servants to retrieve what was lost, acting to restore boundaries that had been crossed. Enki's dual role is echoed in the structure of Sumerian knowledge itself. The me are not simply handed down, they are guarded, transferred, and sometimes withdrawn. This mechanism is not limited to myth. It forms the theological precedent for the way knowledge is managed in the world of men. The catalogs of me, with their precise enumeration of our arts, crafts, and powers, reveal a worldview in which every skill, every memory depends on divine permission. Authority over memory and forgetting is not accidental, but written into the very logic of the cosmos, with Enki as its architect and enforcer. In this system, the act of remembering is always shadowed by the possibility of forgetting, and the privilege of knowledge is always subject to review. Inside the Aduba, the Sumerian house of tablets, the process of learning was shaped by barriers that echoed the gods' own management of memory and knowledge. The Aduba was more than a school, it was a layered institution, its walls and routines designed to keep sacred information in the hands of a select few. At Nippur and excavations have revealed rooms within rooms, with outer chambers for beginners, and deeper inside, locked vaults where only advanced students or priests could handle the most sensitive tablets. These inner sanctuaries stored texts on ritual, medicine, and the me decrees, far removed from the daily exercises of novice scribes. The curriculum itself unfolded in stages. New students began with simple sign lists and basic accounting, but entry to higher levels required not just skill, but trust. Oath formulas pressed into clay bound apprentices to secrecy. One school tablet, dated to the Third Dynasty period, closes with a warning. This tablet is for the eyes of the school father only. In another, a student swears not to reveal the sacred names he has learned, echoing the language found in divine myths. The school father, a title given to the master scribe, served as both teacher and gatekeeper, controlling who advanced and who remained on the outside. Confidentiality went beyond ritual. Administrative contracts from the same period include explicit promises not to disclose the hidden measures of the palace or temple. The logic was consistent. Knowledge was both a privilege and a responsibility, protected by legal and social barriers. Even among the literate elite, access to certain texts depended on loyalty, seniority, and an unbroken chain of trust. These institutional practices mirrored the divine order described in myth. Just as Enki distributed the me with caution and sometimes reclaimed what had been given, the Aduba's system of vaults, staged lessons, and secrecy oaths created a human echo of the god's selective memory. The result was a society where forgetting could be engineered as deliberately as remembering, and where every new generation of scribes inherited not just skills, but the burden of what must remain hidden. In the ancient story known as the Eridu Genesis, the Sumerian gods gather in council and choose to erase nearly all of humankind. Their decision is not described as simple destruction, but as a sweeping act of forgetting. The language of the surviving tablet is precise. Enki, the god of wisdom, alone bethinks himself of humankind, all forgotten as they are. This is not a flood born of chaos or accident. It is a calculated removal, a reset that wipes memory from the world. The text does not say that people are killed and gone, but that they are forgotten, erased from the record of the gods themselves. Yet within this act of erasure, a single thread is preserved. Enki, acting in secret, selects one righteous figure, a man unnamed in the earliest fragments, later called Ziusudra, and gives him the knowledge to survive. The flood comes as decreed, but the chosen lineage endures, carrying forward a memory that the rest of humanity is denied. This rescue is not open rebellion, but a hidden exception, a loophole in the divine policy of forgetting. The survivor is not permitted to keep all that was lost. He is given only the fragments that Enki allows to remain. The motif of selective survival is woven into the very words of the tablet. The lexeme for forgotten appears as a deliberate act, not a passive outcome. The gods do not merely let history fade, they choose what will be erased and what will be remembered. In this myth, forgetting is an instrument wielded by divine authority, and memory is a privilege granted to a chosen few. The flood becomes more than a physical event. It is a cosmic procedure for resetting the world, stripping away old knowledge and restarting the cycle under new terms. The survivor stands as a living boundary between what is permitted to endure and what must vanish, a human vessel for the narrow stream of memory that flows through the gates of oblivion. In the mythic record of ancient Mesopotamia, the Tablet of Destinies stands as the most coveted object of cosmic authority. Inscribed with the decrees that determine fate itself, this tablet was not simply a symbol. It was the instrument by which the universe's order was maintained. The story begins with Enlil, chief among the gods, holding the Tablet of Destinies as the source of his rule. But order proves fragile. Anzu, a monstrous bird with the cunning of a thief and the ambition of a usurper, seizes the tablet in a daring act. With a single theft, Anzu plunges the divine realm into chaos. The laws of the cosmos unravel. Without the tablet, the gods lose their grip on the cycles of time, the seasons, and the destinies of both mortals and immortals. The myth describes a world suspended in uncertainty. The loss is not just Enlil's, it is a rupture in the very fabric of memory and authority. The gods, unable to restore order, turn to Ninurta, the warrior son of Enlil. Ninurta's pursuit of Anzu is relentless. Armed with divine weapons and the backing of the assembly, he tracks the thief to his mountain lair. After a fierce battle, Ninurta overcomes Anzu and reclaims the tablet. Only with its return is stability restored. The decrees are spoken again, the seasons resume, and the god's memory, along with the world's, snaps back into place. This episode is more than a tale of theft and recovery. It encodes a logic where record-keeping and cosmic balance are inseparable. The Tablet of Destinies is not just a catalog of fates. It is the key to remembering the rightful order of things. Its theft signals the danger of lost memory. Its recovery, the restoration of a world where knowledge, history, and authority are bound together. The myth's arc, from disruption to restoration, echoes through later traditions that treat the written record as the anchor of civilization's stability. In Sumerian thought, the act of recording was never neutral. It was always a matter of who held the power to remember and who risked being forgotten. The Weld-Blundell Prism, a clay artifact inscribed around 1800 BCE, preserves a record that splits the Sumerian past into two sharply divided eras. Before the flood, the King List assigns reigns that stretch into the impossible. Alulim, the first king, rules for 28,800 years. His successors reign for tens of thousands more. The total for these antediluvian kings stands at 28,600 years. a number that defies natural order and points to a time when the boundaries of memory and history were themselves elastic. Then, with the line the flood swept over, the numbers collapse. Post-flood rulers are given reigns of 120 years, 43 years, 36 years, and soon only decades or single years. The aggregate for all post-flood kings is about 1,500 years. No gradual decline bridges the two worlds. There is only rupture. The list scribes, anonymous and careful, draw an editorial line that is as much an act of forgetting as of recording. What came before the flood is rendered unreachable, preserved as mythic memory, while what follows is bound by the limits of human experience. Scholars have long debated the meaning of these numbers. Some see exaggeration or political theater, a way for later dynasties to claim continuity with the Golden Age. Others argue for a deeper logic. The drastic reduction in lifespans encodes a deliberate reset, a boundary that separates divine time from mortal time. The King List, by its structure, suggests that history is not a seamless flow, but a sequence of cycles, each one begun by an act of erasure. The numbers themselves become a kind of ritual, a textual method for dividing ages and resetting the ledger of memory. The Weld-Blundell Prism stands as more than a historical record. It is a tool of selective remembrance, a human echo of the divine procedures described in Sumerian myth. The editorial hand behind the King List does not simply record the past, it shapes what is permitted to endure and what must be left behind. In this way, the numbers that divide the ages serve as both evidence and instrument of the Sumerian fascination with cycles of knowledge, forgetting, and renewal. A single phrase pressed into the damp clay of a tablet over 4,000 years ago sits at the center of a modern debate about the boundaries of memory. In the late the Third period, as scribal culture reached its height in the cities of and Nippur, a handful of ritual texts began to use a formula that would puzzle generations of philologists. Nam, Zu, Bala. The signs are simple: Nam for knowledge, Zu for knowing, Bala for turning or returning, but their combination suggests something stranger than a routine incantation. One such tablet, catalogued as ART 20012 in the British Museum, is a remedy for the loss of speech. Its lines record a ritual meant to restore what has been withdrawn. Nam Zu Balati, the knowledge is turned away. The implication is not that memory is destroyed, but that it cycles, that it can be taken and then returned, as if wisdom itself obeys a rhythm set by unseen hands. Another tablet from the Louvre, K12345, uses the phrase in a ceremony to restore the priest's oracular voice. Nam Zu Bal Ame, the turning of knowledge. Here the act of forgetting is not a failure but a deliberate procedure, a step in a process that ends with renewal. A leading philologist, hunched over the brittle surface of these tablets, traces the wedge-shaped impressions and finds a pattern. The phrase appears only in ritual and medical contexts, never in simple administrative records. It is used to describe a reversible loss, a fog of the mind, a silence of the tongue, a wisdom that departs and then returns. Lexical lists from Ison even gloss the compound as periodic forgetting, suggesting that the Sumerians imagined knowledge as something that could be cycled, not simply erased. This is not myth, but formula. The language of Nam Zu Bala is precise, technical, and intentional. It offers a glimpse into a world where forgetting is engineered, a ritual act supervised by priests, sanctioned by the gods. The boundary between memory and oblivion is no accident. It is written, line by line, into the very procedures that governed Sumerian life. Inside the world's museum vaults, the debate over Sumer's memory reset traditions is far from settled. Among Assyriologists, opinions split along familiar lines. Some see the evidence for cyclical forgetting as thin. A handful of ritual phrases, a few ambiguous lines on medical tablets, and a narrative impulse that may owe as much to modern imagination as to ancient intent. One prominent skeptic, Dr. Caroline Weston, points to the fragmentary nature of the Namzu-Bala formula. In her view, these words appear too rarely and in too narrow a context to support claims of an organized doctrine of memory erasure. She warns that the temptation to read modern anxieties about knowledge control into ancient texts can lead researchers astray. Yet the field is changing. The Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative has uploaded more than 345,000 tablet records, with new additions every month. Dozens of tablets referencing Enki, some tagged only as mythic narrative unpublished, remain untranslated in the British Museum, the Penn Museum, and Istanbul's archaeological collections. Recent grant proposals aim to fund collaborative workshops, bringing together specialists from Europe, North America, and the Middle East to tackle these untouched texts. The hope is that systematic transliteration and digital annotation will reveal patterns overlooked in earlier, slower eras of scholarship. For every voice urging caution, another argues that the real story may still be hidden in the unread clay. As digital archives expand and new tools speed the work of translation, the boundaries of what can be known and what must remain speculation are redrawn with each discovery. The question of whether Sumerian civilization encoded a deliberate cycle of forgetting lingers unresolved but alive at the frontier of research. The next breakthrough may come not from grand theory, but from the patient work of reading what has waited in silence for millennia. Today, over 500,000 Sumerian tablets remain unread, their secrets buried beneath millennia of controlled memory and ritualized forgetting. As new fragments surface, we confront the same paradox that shaped ancient Eridu: wisdom preserved, yet boundaries drawn by unseen hands. The question lingers: how much of our own story is written, erased, or withheld? The cycle of knowledge and silence turns on, and we are still searching for the key.